The Old Man Who Died Twice, a story about money, regret, and real wealth. There was once an old man who died twice. The first time he died, nobody cried, not his children, not his neighbors, not the people he had worked beside for 40 years. They stood around his bed in silence, and one of his sons quietly checked his phone. That was the first death. The death of a man who had money, but nothing else. The second death. That one I'll tell you about at the end of this story, because the second death changed everything. But first, sit down. Pour yourself some tea. Because this is an old story, and old stories deserve to be told slowly. His name was Mang Tin. He was born poor. Not tight budget poor. Not can't afford vacation poor. Real poor. Dirt floor poor. One pair of shoes shared between 3 brothers poor. He grew up watching his father come home from the rice fields every evening, back bent, hands cracked, eyes empty. And every night his father would sit by the fire and say the same thing. Son, money is not everything. But without it, everything is nothing. Young Mang Tin didn't fully understand it yet, but he remembered it. He remembered it the day his mother got sick and they couldn't afford the medicine. He remembered it the day his younger sister had to leave school to work. He remembered it the night he lay on a thin bamboo mat, staring at the ceiling, and made a silent promise to himself. I will never be poor again. And he kept that promise. By 30, he had his own business. By 40, he had 3. By 50, he was rich. Not comfortable rich, not doing okay rich, rich. He had a big house, a car with a driver, suits made from fabric his father couldn't have named. He had everything the poor boy on the bamboo mat had dreamed of, and yet there is a price for every treasure. The monks say this. The grandmothers say this. Even the marketplace traders say this. Every deal has 2 sides. Mang Tin paid. He paid with time. His children grew up and he barely noticed. His daughter's first steps, he was in a meeting. His son's school performance, he heard about it secondhand from his wife at dinner, when he had the energy to come home for dinner. He paid with health. At 52, his doctor sat him down with that look and told him his heart was sending warnings. You need to rest, the doctor said. Mang Tin nodded, then went back to work the next morning. He paid with friendship. Old friends stopped calling, not because they were jealous, though some were, but because he had changed. He no longer understood why people wasted their evenings telling stories. That's poor man's entertainment, he thought, but never said out loud. And slowly, quietly, the rich man became alone. Not empty house alone. His house was full of people, employees, relatives asking for things, business partners. But he was alone. But along the way, a crowded room can be lonely. Alone in the chest, alone behind the eyes. He had built a fortress of wealth and locked himself inside it. He was 67 when it happened. Not a dramatic moment. Not a car crash or a heart attack. Just a Tuesday evening. He was sitting alone in his lodge study, the one with the expensive books he had never read, when his youngest grandchild walked in. A little girl, 7 years old. Big eyes, bare feet on the tile floor. She climbed up onto the chair beside him and looked at him very seriously. Grandfather, she said, are you happy? He laughed. The way adults laugh at children's questions when the question is too sharp to answer honestly. Of course, he said. She stared at him. Children have no filter. They look at you and see exactly what's there. You don't look happy, she said. And then she reached over and put her small hand on top of his old, liver-spotted hand, and said, "I love you, grandfather." And Mang Tin, this man who had negotiated million kyat deals without flinching, felt something crack open in his chest. He didn't cry, not then. He waited until she left the room. And then, alone in his expensive chair, surrounded by his expensive things, this rich, powerful man put his face in his hands and wept, because in that moment he understood something. He had spent 40 years building wealth, and he had forgotten to build a life. Here is what our grandparents understood that our generation has forgotten. Money is a tool, not a destination. When you treat it like a destination, you arrive one day and find out the place is empty. There's a famous Burmese saying, "A house full of gold is still just a house. A heart full of love is already a home." The ancient people who built the temples at Bagan were not foolish. They were not ignoring money. But they understood something we've lost, that wealth has two forms. The first form is the kind you count: gold, land, kyat, properties, things you can write numbers next to. The second form is the kind you feel: respect, love, peace, purpose, things you cannot photograph, but you absolutely notice when they are gone. The wise ones knew that you must build both. Not one or the other, both. A man who builds only money becomes Mang Tin, rich and weeping alone. A man who builds only love and no money cannot feed his children, and that is its own kind of suffering. The path, the real path, is the one that holds both without dropping either. And nobody teaches us this path. Not school. Not our bosses. Not social media. We have to find it ourselves. Or, if we are lucky, we hear the right story at the right time. Remember, I told you there were 2 deaths. The first was when Mang Tin lay in bed and his family stood in silence. That happened at 74. But something else happened first. At 68, 1 year after the little girl's question, Mang Tin made a decision. He could not undo the past. He knew that. He could not go back and watch his daughter take her first steps. He could not go back and sit with old friends on slow evenings. But he could start. He started small. Every Sunday, no work, only family. He learned, slowly, awkwardly, how to just be present. How to sit without his phone. How to listen without waiting to speak. He started giving differently. Not donations to impress people. Real giving, quiet giving. A neighbor's medical bill, paid without anyone knowing. A young man from his village, funded through school, no strings attached. He started telling stories. His grandchildren would sit around him and he would tell them, honestly, about the poor boy on the bamboo mat, about the father with cracked hands, about the fire, about the promise. And he would also tell them about the Tuesday evening, about the little hand, about the weeping. Don't make my mistake, he would say, build money. Yes, build it well. But build the other thing too. Build it at the same time. Don't wait until you're old and crying in an expensive chair. When Mang Tin died at 74, his house was full. Not of employees, not of relatives asking for things, not of business partners, full of people who simply loved him. His daughter held one hand, his son held the other. His little granddaughter, now 13, sat at the foot of the bed, and read him a poem she had written herself. And when it was over, everyone cried. That was the second death, the death of a man who had learned late, but not too late, how to be rich in both ways. So let me ask you what that little girl asked him. Are you happy? Not comfortable? Not successful? Not busy? Happy? If the answer made you pause even for a second, this story was for you. Build your money. Build it seriously. Work hard. Be smart. Be patient. But also build your life. Because one day, sooner than you think, someone who loves you will put a small hand on top of yours. And in that moment, no bank balance in the world will matter. Only you will matter. Only who you became. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And I'll see you in the next one.